Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. This is Aurelia Davis, the educator's educator, coming to you on a Friday afternoon around 12 o'clock in Chicago. Just coming to you to talk a little bit more about teachers and being a teacher and taking on the career of being an educator and how important it is to embrace the field of education, how important it is to embrace the field of education. Well, my topic today well, let me give a little bit of background. If you this is your first time listening to me or hearing or seeing me, my name is Aurelia Davis, and I am a former Chicago public school teacher. I taught for over 31 years in the Chicago public school system. Enjoyed it tremendously. I did 31 years, so you know I had to enjoy it. But after retiring in 2012, I decided to just continue on the pathway of encouraging other teachers, encouraging people that were still in the field. And that's exactly what I've been doing for the last couple of years. So I worked on the north side of Chicago at Stone Scholastic Academy. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the family that we were able to build in that particular school. And I just miss some of my colleagues. We get in touch with each other every once in a while just to see exactly what everyone is doing. But at the same time, the things that I have been doing since I retired, I have worked with as a mentor for teach for Chicago, not teach for Chicago, Dominican University, Teach for America. I think that's what the group was called. But these were individual teachers that have been placed in particular schools, and there was a need for mentoring to be ongoing weekly, and so I had at least about I would say about 15 teachers under my watch, that I would visit on a weekly basis and then give them some feedback on the lessons or things I saw that was happening within their classroom. And that I thought that was very inspiring to me because I went in for my master's degree as teacher leadership, and my bachelor's degree is early childhood. So I said all that to say this, that my question today for even myself and even for teachers that are in the field, if you could start all over again, what would you change differently about becoming an educator? Now, some of them may say, I would not go into the field at all. Okay, well, as far as I'm concerned, it's something that I've always wanted to do. Even when I was in elementary school, I would admire the teachers that were standing in front of me in my sixth grade classroom or my third grade classroom. I remember my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Fortuneberry, over at Holland Elementary School over on the west side in North Lawndale. And so just even to remember some of the teachers that I had, when you can recall those educators that made an impact on your life, you're doing pretty good. That means that particular year or that particular school year was very important to you. I also remember going to, oh my goodness, attending seventh and eighth grade, and we had to attend seventh and eighth grade in another building. So we would walk, about 5 or 6 blocks to another building to an upper grade center at that time. And there was a teacher named Miss Fibrance. And that particular time, they had girls' classes for seventh and eighth grade, and they had boys' classes for seventh and eighth grade. I felt that the system felt that this was important because that's when young ladies are coming into becoming young women, and they need a platform where women teachers could talk to them about becoming young ladies. And then, of course, the young boys were coming into their manhood, so they needed a male teacher to talk to them about coming into manhood. So those are some of the things that I remember, but I've always wanted to be a teacher. And the reason I chose early childhood as my bachelor's degree career is that I felt I wanted to, when I first started thinking about becoming a teacher, I wanted to open up a daycare center. I wanted to open up a daycare center. Well, when you're thinking about and going back to like the 70s and the 60s and whatever, daycare centers were just starting to become more visible in communities. There had always been that babysitter that would take in so many children in her home and work with those children. But then there was a need where they started the push for early childhood. In other words, early childhood education, starting children to learning, starting the learning path for children as early as 1 and 2 years old. And it got to the point where we found out that it was found out that children can learn as early as 1 and 2 years old. And that's why it was called preschool. Now, kindergarten was somewhat mandatory at the time, was mandatory at the time, but at the same time, it was not mandatory for preschoolers or children in the ages of 1 and 2 years old for them to go to school or be in school. But they found out that the students, as they were living in these particular households, that there was a need for these children to be in an educational setting, because a lot of times the parents were not able to give them exactly what they needed or what they were supposed to have, so unfortunately, when the children would start kindergarten, they would start school in kindergarten, they would already be behind. And so states and cities decided that this was a time that was needed for children to start learning as early as preschool. And that's when a lot of the I would say the powers that be started putting money into early childhood, teaching children as early as 1 and 2 years old. So I was always intrigued by that also, and I also wanted to be that type of a teacher. And then I did want to have my own daycare center. So starting my bachelor's degree and getting my bachelor's degree in early childhood, that was my first and foremost thing that I wanted to do, was open up my daycare center. Um, but at the same time, as when I started working with CPS, I found that there was also a need to go into the classroom. So my certificate was from K preschool through third grade, preschool through third grade. And before that, I had no prior experiences in a classroom besides my student teaching. I had worked with a couple of youth groups through the summer and whatever, and I knew that I loved working with children. But at the same time, as far as working in the classroom, I did not have that experience. I did not have that experience. So if I could do it all over again, I think I would push to have my own daycare center. I would push to have my own daycare center. Well, at this particular point, here we are, 2023, and daycare centers are all over the place, and they are doing fantastic jobs. I mean, you got child parent centers, you got parent child centers, you got preschools, and at the same time, there are colleges that specialize in early childhood. And so, anyone wanting to go into that particular field of early childhood, the resources are out there and available to you. What I also remember back in those times, when I was thinking about opening up a daycare center, at that particular time, in order for you to be a teacher in a daycare center, you did not have to have a degree. And I think what they did do is that they did push. Of course, you did have to have a high school diploma. You had to have a high school diploma, but you did not have to have a degree. But as time went on, they felt that it was very, very important for those individuals that were working with children to have advanced degrees. So at first, they pushed 2-year degrees or junior college degrees. In other words, you can go to a junior college and get a associate's degree in child development. So they started developing curriculums around child development, which basically takes in the whole child from birth through 5 years old. And so they started developing child development curriculum in the junior colleges. And I had the opportunity to work in Malcolm X Child Development Center as an educator. And I felt that was a very important time in my life, because what was happening is that we were the focal point for teachers that were going into child development. So what would happen is that there was a classroom on one side and there was a classroom on the other side, and then there was an observation room in the middle, in the middle of the center. There was an observation room with a one-sided glass, I guess, if that's what you call it. And so what would happen as we were teaching our children, I was over the 3 and 4 year olds. As we were teaching our children, then students from the child development department would come down and receive and observe us as we worked in those particular classrooms. They would observe us, and eventually they would become student teachers in our classroom so that they can get the training also. So I saw that as being very beneficial to anybody that wanted to go into education. It's sort of like a platform before you even get to the point where you're going into a full classroom. But to even get the experience in a daycare center or a child development center is very instrumental in helping you get to that level for being an educator. So if I had it to do all over again, that's what I would do. I would still pursue opening up a daycare center. And really, it's not too late. It really is not too late. But if I did it now, I would just provide all of the necessary resources that would be needed in order to make those teachers very instrumental in a child's life, because it is very, very important. Sometimes our preschoolers, that first teacher that they recognize is their child development teacher or their early childhood teacher or their daycare teacher, because unfortunately sometimes they can't get the learning that they need at home. They can't get the learning, or they do not get the learning that they need at home. And so to place, so programs have come up to the point where the state is pushing preschool for all. Preschool for all. That means that no matter who you are and where you are, your child can have access to a preschool education on the backs of a state. In other words, the state will pay for it. The state will pay for it. So there's no need for any child in the United States or within certain areas not to be started on the right path as far as education is concerned, because preschools are just looking for children. They are doing heavy recruitments. And the good thing about it is the preschools basically go all year round. They go all year round, which is a good thing also, so that children are constantly learning. And to bring it all together, that's why I just developed the STEM learning cards for preschool, because even as we're talking about STEM and STEAM, science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, engineering, and math. We want our children as early as 2 and 3 years old to know what STEM or STEAM looks like. We want to start that career path where they want to be scientists, or they want to work in the technology field, or they want to be mathematicians, or they want to be engineers, or they want to be artists. So starting that program as early as in the preschools is very, very necessary. And when you see preschoolers and 1 year olds carrying around cell phones and tapping on the buttons, you know that they're ready. You know that they're ready. And so this is what I'm saying, that if I had it to do all over again, I would start a daycare center, and something I may even be considering in the near future as far as opening up a daycare center and setting that daycare center up to the point where it has such strong resources that those children can do nothing but be successful. Uh, Something's coming up next week on Wednesday, March 1st through Friday, March 3rd. I will be attending, sorry about that, the ILASCD conference. And that conference is pre-K and kindergarten conference that Illinois is holding. It will take place. It will take place in Schaumburg at the Renaissance Hotel. And like I said before, it starts on Wednesday. And it ends on Friday. And just go on the website and pull up the activities and pull up the classes and the workshops that's going to be offered. And I'm sure that you will just definitely basically enjoy anything and everything you see. Well, the added addition or the added attraction to this is that I will have a booth, 424. And if you ever wanted to meet me in person, I'll be there. I'll be there. I'll have a copy. I'll be still taking pre-orders for my STEM cards, and just letting you know, and just meeting and greeting and talking to educators, and just continuing to give them the support that is needed in order for them to stay in the classroom. Well, this is Aurelia Davis talking to you today. I was just so glad I was able to come to you today this afternoon, and just give you a little bit more information about me. Teachers out there, you are still one other thing I would like to add, even though you started as a teacher in the classroom, you need to realize that there are so many different areas that you can continue to pursue in education. And educators, because they have that training capabilities and able to present themselves in front of individuals and people, crowds and things like that, your experience is valued. Your experience is valued. That means you can basically go anywhere and everything, anywhere and do anything. Be in the field of education, and then even outside of the field of education. They're looking for trainers and all kinds of people to work in corporations, to do training. And if you're a teacher, you are considered a trainer. You are considered a trainer. So if it ever gets to the point where you would like to come out of the classroom experience is still very, very important. Look into other fields that you can possibly go into, still in the field of education. It's a wide range, and they have added even more over the last 4 or 5 years, where educators are still needed. But this is Aurelia Davis, the educator's educator, coming to you. I hope everybody have a beautiful weekend, and hopefully I'll see you at the conference on next Wednesday, March 1st through March 3rd at the Renaissance Hotel in Schaumburg. Look me up, booth 424. Take care now.